Can't move around. Still hasn't come on. Okay. My live button hasn't lit up yet. Anyway, hi everybody. My name is Donna Gorton. Welcome to my show, Willows Bend. Tonight we are going to be talking about the Hopi Indians, who are the indigenous people of the Southwest of the United States. And I don't know why my thing is dinging. I just shut off all notifications, but we're going to do it again. Odd. Okay. So, we're going to wait for everybody to into my group. So for those who might be possibly new to me, I do broadcast globally. However, I monitor the chat via my Facebook group, the Willows Bend. And so that is where I'm out of as far as, so if you see me looking off to the side, that's all I'm doing is looking at my chat in there. So let me see if we are in here yet. Happening now. Yep, no. Refresh. Yeah, we'll get in there. Anyhow. No, that's not it either. Huh. Weird. All right, well, it'll show up. It always starts in a minute. Anyway, so for those who are also new to me, or as an aside for those who are new to me, I do also broadcast, like I said, globally through Soma Fusion Network. Forgive my hair. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. Yeah, right. My fan on under my table. Hey, Tanya. So yeah, forgive any wispy hair blowing. So let me just say hi to everyone so everyone knows that I see everybody in my chat in my group. So if anyone is interested who is watching elsewhere through Soma Fusion Network, I am on Facebook and I have a group in there called the Willows Bend. And it's kind of like a spiritual group for anybody of any spiritual nature, any belief system is welcome in there. No judgment, definitely no judgy McJudgy pants are tolerated in there. And everyone is given and shown respect because I don't tolerate it to be otherwise in there. So also a great resource library is in there as well. There's constant posts of all kinds in there. So a lot of good stuff. If anyone should be interested in there, that is where I be. I also have my own Facebook page called Being a Veil, and I do readings in there. I'm also a psychic and a spiritual teacher. Hey, Miss Sandy. Hi, guys. So tonight we are, or I should also backtrack for anybody watching on YouTube or elsewhere. So my audience picks a topic for my shows. I present a group of topics. They pick them and we vote on them as a group, majority, and that's what I go and research and present the following week. So that's kind of how we work things. So the Hopi Indians was chosen last week. So Dandy Sandy. That's funny. Good old drunk autocorrect guy. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Let me think if there's anything else I'm missing to tell everybody. I think that's really it. So I suppose we can go ahead and get started. I'm not sure where everyone is within my group, but that's okay. They'll wander in. It is, the holiday weekend and stuff too, and I get that, and a lot of family things going on this weekend. So we know how that works. Here in the United States, it's Independence Day and all the whole patriotic thing, a lot of barbecues, cookouts happening, fireworks. We're last night tormenting all of our poor animals. I think maybe 2 doors down, my neighbors were shooting them off quite late last night. My poor dog about had a heart attack. He went out to go to the bathroom and one really loud, big booming one went off as he was just turning to come back in. And boy, howdy, did he hype it up back in real fast. It was louder than like a rumble of thunder, poor guy. And yeah, people get insensitive about that. And I don't know, they just seem to tolerate it in small town America to allow them to shoot them off, even if it's in town. It's silly. But like if you're out in the middle of nowhere, fine, that's different. But this is in town, and I think that should be a different set of rules. But they are on the other room with chat. What other, Sandy? Because this is in the group. when the feed pops open, I'm not sure what you mean by the other room. You mean like they think it's book group night? It's Monday though. Huh. And for those who are listening in, watching, whatever, wherever globally, I do have a book group I run on Wednesday nights, and Sandy is my Facebook admin and my soul sister, and so she helps me out with stuff. So I was just getting a message because I'm kind of like, where's everybody? Yeah, Sandy, maybe if you could go post a message over to them to say, yeah, we're here instead. You'd think people would know, but not necessarily. So anyway, I always do a kind of a group blessing thing with everybody with sage and a circle of protection. Just everybody likes for me to do it, so I do it. Can't hurt, right? Come on, light it up. Yeah, I don't know unless she means like the book group chat. That's the only thing I can figure, but no, it's not Wednesday. Okay, so with this sage, I cast a circle of protection around anybody who is in watching the show, or maybe listening in anywhere in the United States or the rest of the world. That's where I was then came here and here. As far as I know, this should be in the group though, Sandy, not in the messenger group. So with this stage, I cast a circle of protection around anybody in the show tonight watching, or who might be watching the replay afterward, or is listening live anywhere around the world, because Soma Fusion Media does broadcast globally, and we are everywhere on every social media site. This always shows with a bunch of different ones when Katie shares. Well, she puts the different ways that one can watch it, Tanya. So if one has trouble getting into like Willows Ben to watch it, you can go into YouTube or the Soma Fusion page or the Soma Fusion online page. You can go to like 100 different ways to get to see it. So that's where she puts that whole list down in the write-up above the show topic and stuff. So it's just because we can be viewed everywhere in any way. We are pretty, and we also are on iHeartRadio. That was a mouthful for me to spit out. Thank you for sharing. I do appreciate that, Tanya. Hopefully, like I said, people should know, like, you know, they can come in here and watch the feed in a group. That's fine. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and start. Some fusion. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I mean, Katie usually puts it in Willow's Ben group and they watch it in there. So I don't know where we are. That's the one I opened anyway. That's okay. We'll leave it. I'm going to stay where I'm at anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and get started because people will catch up or they are watching somewhere else, and that's okay. So the Hopi Indians, the more common term that people who are of native blood care to be called is, you know, Indians is really an outdated term that was given to them by European settlers, and they just, you know, they kind of, in the age of political correctness and such, have changed it to indigenous people is the preferred name to call people who are native to any particular land, is the indigenous people from that land. So the Hopi indigenous tribe, they are a sovereign nation in the northeastern Arizona, USA, and the reservation occupies part of Coconino and the Navajo counties, most of the countries, and encompasses more than 1.5 million acres. It's a really, really large reservation, especially compared to some of them, but they are a really big tribe too. So it's made up of 12 villages on 3 different mesas, which is an isolated flat-topped hill with steep sides as found in like the desert areas in the United States. So like when you see sides of the Grand Canyon is part of their reservation area. So you'll see like a huge giant rock cliff up on top of that where it's kind of flattens out on top. That's called a mesa. Tanya, is the same broadcast just shared into many groups in Soma Fusion? Correct. Yeah, so that's just all the different places that it gets shared to, and one can view the show on is pretty much anywhere. It doesn't just have to be on Facebook. So they have 12 different villages based off of three of these really huge mesas. And again, they're flat areas in the desert areas of the United States. And despite attempts at eradicating them as a people, forced removals, etc., from European colonists coming in over to America and kind of saying, hey, we want that land, and it doesn't matter whether you were here first or not, which happened with all tribes across the United States. Treaties were created with the United States governments to basically delegate a certain number of acres of land for different tribes to be able to live on and call their own, and nothing can ever be done with it from there. That is why people don't know which one to come to. It's always saying, okay, gotcha. Now, it's the same one it always is, though, so people normally come into the Willows Bend group to watch, so or Facebook, or sorry, not Facebook, to YouTube is another way people go to watch it typically, but I don't know. They'll find their way here. I mean, if it's the same chat feed, then I guess it doesn't really matter. So once the European colonists got to the United States, they were making tribes move. And the United States government realized that, they're going to fight back. Of course, they were here for centuries and centuries prior to the colonists coming over. So kind of like where would they just say, oh, okay, and get up and leave? That was their ancestral homelands. And many of them did fight back, and, lots of lives were lost on both sides, from the soldiers coming in and saying, okay, well, you got to go. And many were forced to leave and march to different areas to reside in furthermore. But they were pretty much always have been in this area, which is kind of unheard of in the United States with most tribes. They were not allowed to stay on their ancestral homelands. The Hopi were different. They could and did. So as of the 2010 census, and yes, another one was done last year, but I couldn't find any up-to-date numbers on that anywhere. But as of 2010, there are approximately 19,338 Hopi in the United States. Now, the Hopi language is one of 30 in the Uto-Aztecan language family, which is also encompassed in what like Mexican Indians speak, as well as Aztecs speak part of the language from that family as well. So there is some intermeshing of some similarities in how things are pronounced, etc. So as far as some back history, now the Hopi countered the Spaniards and the first outsiders to them ever, because they'd always stayed pretty isolated to themselves, with the exception of other tribes, back in the 16th century, so in the 1500s. And they're referred to as the Pueblo people because they lived in villages, and pueblos is the Spanish word for villages. So Hopi are descended from the ancestral Puebloans, aka the Anasazi, Spanish of the present day, spanning the present day Four Corner region of the United States. And this includes the southeast Utah, northeast Arizona, northwestern Mexico, and southwestern Colorado. Now, Anasazi is the name given by the Navajo, meaning ancient enemies. As you can imagine, Hopi don't really care for that as a name for themselves, and don't at all consider them a warring nation of themselves. In fact, they are bound to more have peaceable relations with everybody if possible, and only use violence at an extreme when there's absolutely no other choice given. But the Navajo are kind of their enemies, so they call them ancient enemies. Modern day Puebloans object to the name, so they go by a Hopi. Hopi means primarily behaving one, quote unquote, or one who is mannered and civilized, peaceable, polite, who. And I do have a number of photographs too, by the way, for tonight, to show of the people, of what they dress like and what their homes look like, etc. So they are a civilized, peaceable peaceable. I can't talk tonight. Please forgive me. It's not my first day of my new tongue, I promise. They're polite, who follows the Hopi way. The Hopi have a total reverence and respect for all things, and being at peace with all things, and living in accordance to their deity, Masa. Now, the Masa deity, it has several different pronunciations and slight differences in the spellings. That was the one I thought I would butcher the least. Okay, I don't need the camera, silly. So it sometimes is presented, Masa is as a deity who was not to be trifled with and could be angry in nature and be mask wearing. Other times it's presented as, only that, yes, quick tempered, if you will, however, willing to help others if the need arises. So that is their primary deity. And if you forgive me, I am simply reopening. I had it open and ready to go, my photos for tonight. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, there we are. Hey, Karen. So the Hopi people are farmers by tradition, and maize or corn is the central thing that they grow out of, like it's their central bond with the land. So it's not only provides sustenance to them and is a main staple of their diet, it also is a ceremonial object, prayer offering, and considered a sentient being and having sentient consciousness. Hey, Miss Sandy, I was wondering where everybody was, and Tanya thought like everybody was in other chats somewhere, or YouTube perhaps, but always in the group. So some of the Hopi traditions include the kachinas, and many people have heard the term kachina dolls, which is only one small aspect of the kachinas. So one of the Hopi religious societies is the Katsina Society. These reflect a close association between the worlds of the living and the dead. Oh, you were in Soma Fusion? Gotcha. Yeah, I always go into the group to do monitor chat, figuring that's the easiest place for most people to get to.
Donna, I just found out where you are looking at the chat.
Where am I looking to? Because I followed the link where you shared.
Yeah, there's duplicate. Whenever I go live on Facebook, this is just concerning Facebook alone. Mm-hmm. There is it streams both on my profile wall, and on the Soma Fusion Media page. So when it goes live, people who are connected to me, like yourself and so many others, they get a duplicate notification. One that says that I'm live on my wall and live on the page itself. And so if you go over to, so you're looking at the live stream that's directly on my Facebook page.
Oh, because it said that it
that's why people can't see you on the page.
Yeah. Because I did have that actually first open, was in the group, like I always do.
Yeah. I think that may be just the confusion, the fact that it's duplicate, that the stream is in multiple places all over Facebook.
It could be because, that's what I had followed, was it said, Katie shared into Willows Ben. So I followed that, figuring, that would refresh the feed in the group, and I would go by that.
Guys, if you are looking for the chat that Donna's following right now, go over and look for my name.
Go into Willows Ben group. So that's where I'm at right now. It's in the Willows Ben group, watching chat in our group.
Yeah. So either way, if you're watching the chat feed from my Facebook profile. So for guys that are confused right now, you can still watch on the page perfectly fine. I'm over there monitoring it, but if you go over, find my profile, and you can watch it there too.
Mm-hmm. So sorry for the confusion, guys. I had gone into the group like I normally do, waiting for it to start. It wasn't starting, and I kept refreshing and it wasn't working. So I jumped back out and clicked on the notification where it said that you posted into Willows Ben. I get over there, and there's only 2 of us in there. So it is the Soma Fusion chat still, but I'm in the group now. You're in the group, but see a different chat. That's interesting, Renee. I see you though, sweetie. And Stacia saying I can't open the other page. So, I mean, I'm seeing whatever you guys are typing because it's a Soma Fusion chat. You're typing it in. It just gets shared into our group is how it works. So, but I'm with you. I got you. And I'm going to keep going with the topic material and we'll go from there. Sorry again for any confusion. Has this caused anyone? I'm not sure how everyone got scattered tonight, but we're here. It's still the same feed, regardless where you're watching it, no matter whether it's YouTube, the internet, or Facebook, it's still going to be the same thing. Hey, Brenda. So I can see you now. Yes, Lori. And I couldn't open your message before I started. I didn't see you even message me until we're getting on the air. So I am in Willows Ben group right now, but the feed is the same feed. It's just shared into the group and I hit play. We are all over the PlayStation. That's okay. You know, it's still Soma Fusion. And so that's what counts. Okay. So let me backtrack a little less. So Hopi, I'll start that paragraph over. So the Hopi translates into meaning the primary, quote, behaving one, one who is well-mannered and civilized, peaceable, and polite, who scattered bunch of nuts, follows the Hopi way. And the Hopi have a total reverence and respect for all things and to being at peace with their deity. The Masa is their main deity. There are many different names for the Masa. They're all very similar words in nature, but I swear I could not find any other adequate translation of their deity anywhere online other than showing like the Maasai people in Africa, which is not what I wanted. Yes, it was your topic tonight, Lori. We're everywhere you want to be, Katie. So the Hopi people are farmers by tradition, and maize or corn is their central bond with the land. And corn is not only their sustenance, but it's a ceremonial object, prayer offering, and a sentient being to them because all living things are. So in the Hopi, some of the Hopi traditions, we're going to cover those tonight. So we're going to start with the idea of the kachinas. And many have heard of the kachina dolls, but that's only like part of what a kachina is, which we're going to talk about. All right there, Scooby-Doo. Say hi, Jake. Hi, Jake. Trying to get settled. Don't drop the pen. Okay, so a kachina is one of the Hopi's religious society in the Hopi society, Hopi tribe. The kachinas it's the plural that is katsina, and so these reflect a close association between the worlds of the living and the worlds of the dead. So the katsinas are pretty much basically the spirits or like the souls, and they occupy a specific space, which I'm going to get into more of that in a second. So the spirits play an integral part in the role in the land of the living in huge importance, whether it's ancestral beings or just other soul beings that have, worked with them as a tribe. So they're associated also with the clouds and are benevolent entities called the Katsinam, which is the plural of Katsina, which inhabits the San Francisco Peaks, which is a volcanic mountain range in north central Arizona. I can see you, Marianne. I can. So I do have a picture of the San Francisco Peaks. So I'm going to do my best to show you the pictures here with using my good old trusty tablet. That's not going to work. So let me try to angle it this way. Nope, there we go. So that's the San Francisco Peaks. And that is where they believe that the souls and the spirits that are the Katsina live for 6 months out of the year. So it's those peaks. Beautiful there, right? And let's go back. I'm not going to edit the photo. No. Okay. So let's see. The kachina masks, and many of us are familiar with kachina dolls, and it's technically a mask wearing figure is how how the humans represent the Kachina spirits and the dancers. And they began to appear as rock art as early as 1325 current era. So the year 1325. So we're in 2021, it's 1325. So here is, now they're very, very iffy on any, well, they don't allow any type of photography of their religious ceremonial dances and so forth, or religious ceremonies, period. No go, no photography is allowed. So it's really only through illustrations. They may allow a photograph of the group before they start, but of the actual process of it, no go. So here's a drawings of Kachina dolls from an 1894 anthropology book. And for those who aren't familiar with anthropology, it is the study of people and cultures from around the world and, you know, their way of life. So these are drawings of Kachina dolls. Okay. There we go. So for the San Francisco peaks, now according to their lore, during an awful drought, they heard singing and dancing coming from these peaks. Upon investigating, they met the Kachinas, which are spirits of the universe. They returned with them to their villages and taught them different forms of agriculture, including growing corn and, you know, maize, which is, again, hugely important in their society. The Hopi believe that for 6 months out of the year, they are with them in their villages and they stay there, helping them, watching over the planting and growing of the crops, etc. There we go. And that they do have a going home ceremony where there's a line of Kachina's dancers and they bring gifts for spectators and the Kachina dolls for young girls. There are different sets of Kachinas performing the dance in late July and early August, which is, you know, about harvest time for corn. And then the spirits then return home to the San Francisco peaks for the next 6 months. And they believe it also serves to help bring rain to their parched homelands. Now, they do get rain. I mean, you know, it doesn't seem like it would be enough to have farming be a way of life for them because, you know, it's semi areas. However, they do get winter storms, snow, and some rain throughout the rest of the year. Not a lot, but they harvest what they can of that rain to store it and kind of dole it out throughout the year to hold them in between different storms and such. So Hopi mythology, well, before I do that, I want to show you an image of a young girl. Well, she's not really young. She's a young woman dressed traditionally as in the Hopi style of dress with a traditional Hopi piece of pottery. And there she is. I used her for the group photo for the show as well for tonight, the reminder. Now that style with the hair, it's called a squash blossom style. And they literally take like a loop of wood and tightly wind the hair all around it and then remove the piece of wood out of it. And then you end up with these twists that kind of look like squash blossom flowers. And that is a traditional style of a younger woman wearing her hair. Most older women, you know, they just put it back in like a bun type of thing and they don't do that whole elaborate thing. Is my chat frozen? Might be. Nope, nobody's saying anything, that's all. Okay. So Hopi mythology. Really? You're gonna close me out again. Get out of there. Okay. Now their mythology involves oral traditions, as do all indigenous people. You know, the written record isn't really a thing for them. That's more of a, you know, the reading and writing thing came along with the colonists more than anything. Things were passed down through oral history and every step of the way. So oral tradition is hugely important, and that's where the mythology goes from. Now, it is much like a telephone game. So different villages, different generations may tweak the stories a little bit, can vary even from Mesa village to Mesa village, but the core root of it stays the same regardless of the telling of it. And it's also kept in mind, again, that many different versions may be told to outsiders like an anthropologist, etc., in order to not discuss matters considered ritual secrets or religious traditions. Like, you don't share that stuff to an outsider. That's sacred knowledge. And so, we don't tell that stuff. So they have like a separate version of it, if you will, to tell outsiders in order to keep it sacred to the tribe. Now, it's not that they're all against outsiders, not at all. They will incorporate new ideas for outsiders if it has a practical necessity, but they do try very hard to hang on to their native traditions that are thousands of years old here. That's very, very important to their tribe, because so many tribes, even if they're still in existence, have lost all of their indigenous culture because they had like a lot of them had forced removal of their children to where they were sent to Christianized schools and forced to shave off their hair, cut their hair off, which was like a power thing for them, or an empowerment for them, and forced to wear uniforms. If they dared to speak a single word of their native tongue, they were severely punished, beaten, starved, etc., until they just learned to not use anything pertaining to their indigenous culture. So much of it got lost because of that. That was my first thought too, is Princess Leia, but it's called the squash blossom. And so many people, so many tribes, cultures got lost, and language skills because of that history. And I recently read a big article about that, of looking for reparations from the United States government for having done that to their children, because children were separated from their families, never to be seen or heard from again, and it was allowed. And yet all these cultures got lost because of it, and because of it being with the newest generation of children. Well, they lost this ability to teach and pass on those oral traditions, and the elders would, they slowly died away, and any record of their original histories went with the elders. And so they lost all of that, unless there happened to have been something documented by an outsider. So their practices, their belief systems are very, very important to the Hopi culture. So as previously mentioned, the Spaniards arrived in the 16th century, and with them carried the European Christian traditions. And they did build several missions in several Hopi villages starting around 1629. And they were operational until the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. Now, this was an uprising of most of the indigenous Pueblo people against the Spaniard colonization. The 400 Spaniards were killed, and it drove off the rest of them. There was approximately 2,000 remaining that they didn't die in the fight, but they were driven out because, they said, no more, we're not doing this. And the Hopi alone of all the Pueblo people kept them out of their villages permanently. Now, regular contact with whites didn't begin for actually another 200 years after the revolt. So outside influence has really had very little influence on the Hopi practices and belief system. Now, I wanted to show you a piece, like it's rock art, it's cave art. It's an ancestral Pueblo petroglyph in Mesa Verde National Park that got found. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit, make it all the more visible here for you. And okay, there we go. So all those little spiral figures there, those are thought to represent the different levels of the world that they would transverse to get into, where they are currently on the reservation, on their lands, and in their villages. And so there was like 4 different worlds that they would go through to get to where they are now. So it's thought that's what the spirals represent. And interestingly, many of us have seen them before in the cave art pictures, where it's shown that the ant people, Many of us have heard of that before. It's thought to be a form of ants, which it actually is. And it's not much is known of, where that came from, or if that was contact with them, or that was even perhaps perceived to be the Katsinas, but that's part of their cave art as well. So let's see. I said that to you already, so I don't need to repeat that to you. Okay, and also in talking about the going home dance for the Kachinas, here is an illustration of the dance. Again, they didn't allow photography to take place ever. So that's just like an illustration where the dancers are lined up ready to go for it. And you got people standing up on the rooftop, sitting on the rooftop to view it, because it's like an integral part to their society in sending the spirits home for the remaining 6 months out of the year. Okay, there we go. So the Hopi clan structures, what was their like family structures? On the left side, I see a doggy drawing. Maybe I have closed the photo out, so I'm not looking at it right now, but yeah, there might have been a dog shown or been representative of another animal that what they were, was known to the original artist who drew the petroglyphs. I'd have to look at it again. So the clan structures are bound together by clan relations. So currently there's 34 living clans spread throughout the 12 villages. Each clan is made up of people who trace their lineage matrilineally through, which is the mother's line, back to a common ancestor. And each village operates autonomously of the others. This reminds me of a parade. Yeah, well, they kind of are, because they would dance through the town, I'm sure, as a group, and for the spectators, and that would be representative of them leaving the village and going back to the San Francisco Peak. So I'm sure they were kind of lined up, ready to go. So the different clans live autonomously from each other and is very self-governing per village. The Hopi are widely considered to be the oldest of the living indigenous people in North America. Very spiritual tribe. Yes, absolutely. Like I said, hanging on to their culture and their religious beliefs is of utmost importance to them. So, again, many tribes lost that through European colonizations, forced removals, the kidnapping of children and placing them in European Christian schools here in the United States also kind of killed off a lot of that culture, but they're very proudly hung on to many of that. Not much has changed between, way back when to now, and they still even farm in very like hands-on traditional way versus bring in farm equipment or things that might make life easier. They still do it the old way. So, and forgive my hair, my fan is blowing it most annoyingly. So the Hopi are widely considered to be the oldest of the living indigenous people in North America. And the current population is about 14,212. In fact, the village of, let me make sure I get to, don't butcher this, Oribe on the third mesa is the oldest continuously inhabited U.S. settlement, like across the whole country. And it was established in about 1100 CE, which means current era. So they're around the year 1100. There is a multi-level living complex built by stacking rooms without ground level openings, several stories high around a central courtyard. And I do have some pictures of some of their structures that they would live in and do everything in. They would even have any religious, for spiritual leaders to meet in and so forth. They would be inside these buildings. So here's what their traditional structures look like, and they're still in use today. So like if one goes to visit the reservation, you are not allowed in any of those without a distinct permission, because many people still live in them. And if you look really closely, you can see ladders there. Let me go here, my pen. Ladders are here, and that's how they get up to the upper levels to enter, but as you can see, the ground floor levels really don't have any entrance to them. And even the windows are placed much higher up. And it would be made of like adobe bricks and you know, mixed together and like mud and what am I hitting here? In the adobe brick style. They still very much use that style to build with even today. I hate this tablet because it jumps out of photos and jumps over to opening Google unrequested. All right, there we go. And here we go. Here is prehistoric connection between the Hopi, as far as like some of the indigenous structures anyway. These are still there, very much so, and kind of built into and in between like the cliff overhang for protection. And I'll show you this too real quick. So this is their personal flag that is used by the Hopi. It just says Hopi, obviously. Now here is a photograph of like the Hopi dancers dressed up for a particular dance. Again, it's not allowed to be videotaped or photographed in the middle of it, but you know, they're just walking, so that's different, and they kind of allowed the photo to be taken, but that's in their traditional style of dress for different ceremonial dances. Turquoise is a huge gemstone for them as a people. And this is a, let me get it to open for you. An original vintage Hopi Kachina eagle dancer. It's like a carved statue. Yeah. So like I said, that's a mask, but it's representative of a deity, a spirit that is coming to their village to help them. Here's another image of some of the petroglyphs too. I don't know why they got separated from the others, but come on, get away from the glare. Let me try the other side. Let's see if I can get it on there. There we go. No, I had it for just a second, didn't I? It'd be so hard to get it angled. Well, you can kind of see it anyway. So there's a handprint, and there we go. The giant spiral. And that's part of another set of petroglyphs. I believe there was, so yes, there is in, so they basically occupy the four corners. I started the show before everybody got straightened out as to where everyone was located at for the chat. Let's see, Eastern Arizona in the USA. Let's see, let me find it. I had it written down of exactly what areas they do occupy. Southeast Utah, Northeast Arizona, Northwestern Mexico, and Southwestern Colorado. Yes, definitely sacred geometry for the spirals, Sandy. Absolutely. Okay, here we go. It is like a lighter colored photograph, which is where it would be difficult to view it. Yes, the four corners. So what I just read off is where they are primarily located, where the reservation lands cover, which includes the Grand Canyon too. Okay, so some of the traditional beliefs of the Hopi, according to their cultural center online, which I do have a website, visitors are allowed to come year-round and see the reservation and visit it, but it's limited where you can go and what you can do there, of course. They have a hotel on site. They have a restaurant that's operational year-round, 7 days a week. Obviously, they want you to make reservations in advance, but, you know, it's available. And you can view like certain things they will do for spectators, like some of the dances and stuff. It's just you are not allowed to photograph at any time. So the Hopi believe that they've passed through several evolutionary eras, often referred to as worlds, coming to inhabit the current world of Tuwaka'atsi. Tuwaka'atsi, it's called. I had to spell it out phonetically, so I went through it. That's what they call the current world. And the Hopi live by the sacred covenant made upon arrival to this land to live a life of compassion, humility, cooperation, respectfulness, and universal earth stewardship. And stewardship means being caregivers for the earth, and that was part of their role in being brought into the current world, was to be the caregivers of the earth. Wasn't it the Hopi Indians that live in the Grand Canyon? Yep, just said that a minute ago, Renee. Somebody wasn't watching. So the third mesa is renowned for its fine weaving of traditional Hopi clothing and textiles, wicker plaques, and multicolored yucca baskets, which is yucca's type of plant, and artistic paintings and jewelry making. The second mesa is home to the Hopi Cultural Center and also makes the same items as made in the third mesa. Well, see? Well, then what good is it listening to me talk if you don't have your ears in? Then you can't listen to me. You can point and laugh at me. That's about it. The first mesa is on the eastern side of the Hopi Reservation, is noted for its high-rise dwellings, which I already showed, with panoramic views. In here, they also make pottery, artistic paintings, and Hopi carvings. They also offer organized tours of the surrounding landscape within their jurisdiction of the reservation. Some of the Hopi agricultural practices, also called the Nitwani, is what their agricultural practices are. Oh, I'm sorry you got an ear infection. The trifters, yeah. ADHD, what? Sorry you got an ear infection going on. So after living in a semi-arid climate for thousands of years, the Hopi have perfected dry farming techniques that utilizes existing moisture in the soil and is dependent on any natural precipitation, like winter snows and monsoon summer rains. So they gather all that water and definitely use it as they can throughout the year. The qualities the Hopis live by come into play here with an act of faith that has both religious value as well as an economic one. Now, most farming continues to be done by hand and is a collective endeavor. So the men do the planting and tending to the, whatever crops growing, like corn, squash, beans, and they harvest the crops. And then, page turn. Should have put my hair up, but I didn't really have time. Women and girls learn techniques for the storing and preservation of the harvest for later use, like canning, etc., to make sure that there is food available in the off season. Respect for the Hopi culture. Now, the Hopi are intensely private people, as are most tribes, regarding religious ceremonies. And some Katsina dancers are open to the public, but they, again, refuse any photography. They don't allow any sketching or recording of their religious ceremonies at all. So you can't even sit and draw a picture of it, or I'm sure it probably would get confiscated. Like, you have to agree to that prior to it happening, of being like witnessing it, because it's not meant to be put out there. And again, the written word doesn't hold much for them. It's oral traditions is what is important. So capturing it to perhaps do something with it would be like a sacrilege. So it would be kind of like standing in the middle of town square burning a Bible for most Christians. So yeah, we don't do it. Visitors aren't allowed to enter any home or structure without permission, and they ask people to leave no trace, which means don't take anything from the Hopi lands and don't leave anything behind. Now, visitors can book a room on the reservation, though, and the Hopi, Cultural Center is located on the second mesa. They have a hotel open 365 days a year with 33 rooms and one master suite. There is also, I believe, one handicap suite available, which I did check in the prices out of curiosity. The rooms look like a pretty standard hotel room. If you're looking for like the handicap suite or room where it's handicapped accessible, you can put wheelchairs. The doors are wide enough for wheelchairs. The showers are walk-in showers, but minus a tub. That runs about 166 a night or something like that. The regular rooms, I believe it said like 66 a night. So bit of a difference, but you know, it's because there's only one of them, I'm sure it goes quick. So booking in advance, should you be interested in going on a trip there to check it out, is your best bet to get the best price in advance and get what you're looking for. And there's a whole little digital thing where you can enter in the cultural center, like the number of adults or children and so forth, what you're looking for, when you're looking to go, that sort of thing about. There's a restaurant on site open daily for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is a big difference. Yeah, absolutely. I thought so too. There's also a gift shop featuring the Hopi artwork and the handicrafts of several Hopi artists. So some other facts about the Hopi tribe. Now, each clan is governed by a chief who is also the spiritual leader of that village. So there isn't like a separate spiritual leader. It would be an interesting vacation. I mean, if you're there to say, going to see the Grand Canyon, well, you know, stop and tour the reservation and check out the Hopi culture and the Hopi Cultural Center. Yeah, that would be very interesting in addition to seeing the Grand Canyon too. Their religious beliefs and their belief system are based on animism, which, I mean, I definitely understand this belief system because I was raised with this. So this is also, yes, I consider myself Wiccan, but there is very much the animism aspect from my medicine woman training, and I've grown up with that. So animism is the belief that all natural objects within the universe have souls or spirits of their own. So basically every living thing has its own soul. And this means that not only do humans have a soul, so do trees, rocks, plants, animals, all natural forces, even like the rain, the moon, and sun do as well. Animism is more commonly applied to the hunter-gatherer groups and tribes, and it's one of the oldest belief systems known to humans, and is said to date back to at least the Stone Age. Yeah, it would be interesting. They also tend to have animal totems and what their meanings are. So many indigenous people, the preferred term over Indian, like I said, believe that each person has an animal totem, which is a natural object or being, which is an emblem of a clan or a group, can also be a spiritual guide and a protector. So in my belief system, and is like how I was raised from the medicine woman standpoint, the totem is the protector. Yes, they are a guide as well, and they teach you things and help watch over you, but they're the protector aspect of it. And then I have a separate animal as a guide as well. So I have both, and many traditions do as well. And totems are spiritual guides that might appear in dreams or vision quests in the form of an animal. These walk through life with the animist, guiding and teaching them, and are protectors also. Now, Hopi clothing, men wore breechcloths or short kilts made from a long rectangular piece of cloth or animal skin. Pretty much it's the atypical view of what, you know, we grew up seeing portrayed in the movies and stuff that an indigenous person would wear. So it would be a long strip of fabric, cloth, or animal skin that would be cut into like a rectangle shape and put between the legs and up, and they would have a belt around the waist to go on the underside of the flaps of fabric or the skin, and it would hang down over top of, you know, their backsides and their fronts. So it'd be kind of like tucked into the hold in place. And during the 1800s, men started wearing cotton tunics, leading to cotton shirts and rather short trousers with a headband, holding their hair out of their way. They weren't a tribe that really wore their hair, at least the men, generally that long. It was more kind of kept shoulder length and cut in almost like a Dutch boy style, was very common amongst the older gentlemen in the tribe. Let me see if I got a picture of the men. Let's see here. I might not. I do not. Okay. Well, it's as I described, you know, like I said, they would have the tunics are like kind of like long shorts, if you will. They wore moccasins with soft leather slip-on shoes with the sole and the sides were made of a single piece of leather. And I wanted to also share too, before going too far ahead, the Hopi medicine wheel. Now, you'll sorry, my shoulder's not happy tonight. I got thunderstorms coming. You get the 4 colors plus green in the center. So I will read you what it says on each square. But traditionally, for most cultures, the 4 colors are representative of the different colors of the races of man. So towards the north of their medicine wheel is white, and that, let me tilt it so I can actually read it, are a little fuzzy, are animals receiving energy, mental aspect, wisdom, and logic. Hi, Ted, welcome. The center learning section where it's green, it says center learning is representative of balance, beauty, and harmony. To the yellow is representative of the yellow sun and fire for the east. Oh, thank you, Lori. Determines energy, spiritual aspect, illumination, and enlightening. And the red, if I can read it, it's kind of fuzzy. I don't know why it's so fuzzy, but photograph just came out fuzzy. Well, typically, like I said, that would be representative of people as a being, but it also has to do with the energy and travel and so forth. And that's more like the southern pie piece. And then to the western side is black, and it's earth physical, holds energy, physical aspects, introspection, and insight. So that is their medicine wheel. I apologize. I can't read the red part any better. I thought I would, but it's pretty fuzzy. I don't know why, because the rest I can read it clearly, but can't make it out. So let's back out of there. Okay. Okay, so the moccasins, like I said, they were a slip-on shoe with a sole and sides made of a single piece of leather. They were measured to fit your feet and handmade, hand stitched. You use like an awl to punch holes in it where needed to lace them up to make them snug. And the Hopi women's clothing, they traditionally wore a knee-length cotton dress called mantas that were fastened after a woman's right shoulder, leaving the left shoulder bare, and it would be tied with an embroidered belt at the waist. Once girls reached womanhood, their hair was dressed with those 2 squash blossoms, like what Lori said would look like Princess Leia, which they probably don't take kindly to being told that, but just saying. So that's the squash blossom style. So once a girl enters womanhood, that's how her hair started to get tied and put up as. And then it's wound around pieces of wood, and then wood pieces are removed, hence keeping the big, blossoms up on either side in place. And then it's fastened at the base, obviously. So that symbol is the Hopi symbol for fertility. Older women kept their hair long and worn in a traditional, it's called a chago style, which is tying the hair in a sort of bun behind the head in a hair knot that's wrapped with white yarn. And turquoise jewelry and ornamentation would also be worn a lot. Again, turquoise is a very important gemstone for them. And, back in the day, before shore mining happened, it used to be quite a popular, easy to find one as well. So who are the Hopi's enemies? Despite being a peace-loving tribe, they were subjected to frequent raids by the Navajo tribe, which is kind of funny considering the Navajos are the ones who called them the Anasazi, which is the ancient enemies, is what that translates into. They didn't seek out the fight, but the Navajo would attack and raid them for supplies and whatnot. And occasionally the Apache also would engage in that kind of behavior. So what tools did the Hopi use? Hopi hunters would use bows and arrows and large sticks. If they needed to fight, and they would step up the use of bows and arrows, which later led to also gun use in the introduction of the European settlers, brought in the guns, and often would trade them for supplies and so forth. But traditionally they would use the bow and arrow and also use spears. They used pump drills for making holes in turquoise and other beads. And they also used looms for loom work, right? So where you basically weaving with a loom and spindles for weaving cotton and wool. The Navajo reservation is just west of that, correct? So it's their nearest neighbors, basically, and the Apaches are not that far from them. So the Apaches didn't participate as often. Now the family roles, how are the family dynamics set up with the Hopi people? So Hopi boys learn farming and hunting with their fathers side by side, and tribal politics, agriculture, and war fell to the men, as it was for most cultures. Not that they are necessarily a male-dominated society. Again, it's very matrilineal, meaning that, the woman's family, yes, she handled traditional roles, but it, like when they got married and stuff, the guy would go live with the wife's family versus vice versa, where there are a lot of cultures where the wife leaves her family and goes to the husband's household. And the Hopi, it's opposite. So women were in charge of the family, making textiles, storing crops, etc. And again, there's matrilocal households where, again, when the women first get married, the men, they have their whole wedding traditions, which we're going to get into in a minute. But children are part of the mother's clan. So even if it's, children are born in the union of marriage, for them, they're considered part of the mother's household and her family's clan, part of the husband's. I mean, yes, it's still the same bloodline because of the matrilocal society, that's how it follows. Now, with the birth of a child, when a child is born, they get a special blanket and a perfect ear of corn. Now, on the 20th day after they're born, they take the child to the Mesa Cliff, hold it up facing the sun, and then when the sun hits the baby, that's when the child is given their name. Marriage, besides being matrilocal, a Hopi bride will basically go to the intended husband's household. She first, in expressing interest in a gentleman to be her suitor. Hey, Ronnie. Yeah, we're kind of towards the back end of the show. In order to show her interest in a gentleman, she would leave like a basket of corn flour, essentially, on the doorstep of the husband's family's house. If his parents pick it up and take it in, they're accepting her proposal, essentially. If it's left untouched, she's saying, his family is saying, no, go, you may not marry our son. Let's see. So the Hopi bride, she goes to the intended husband's home, family's home, grinds corn for 3 days, to show that she has wife skills, essentially, and, knows how to handle herself. Interestingly, the groom and his male relatives weave wedding clothes. And after they're done, she walks home wearing one of the wedding outfits and carries the other one in a separate container. Women are also buried in their wedding outfits, so when they enter the spirit world, they're dressed appropriately. The Hopi man wears several beaded necklaces on his wedding day. I couldn't find any pictures that showed what a man would wear for wedding attire. And trust me, I searched, but yeah, no good. So I do have an image of what a woman would traditionally wear when getting married. Let me find the right picture here. Okay, so here's a photo of her wearing one. It's an older picture and a little grainy, so bear with that. But let's see if I can get it angled right. So there she is, and it's sort of like a shawl type of blanket that is over her. And it looks, I think she's carrying either corn stalks that are tied together. I couldn't tell from the pictures, but it sort of looked like dried corn stalks. Perhaps it's a mat of some kind that they have. 3 days grinding corn, I'm out, right? A lot of women would be. Yeah, and that was the expectation. I mean, you were allowed to sleep. You didn't have to stay up for 3 days straight, but do 3 days. So here's a separate picture of a wedding ensemble, and it got the shawl blanket with the boots, some of the jewelry she might wear, in addition to this. In this picture, it shows like it sort of looks like a map, but I would definitely say it's corn stalks that are kind of rolled together into a ball. So that's traditionally what a woman would get married in. But again, she would have 2 separate wedding outfits. One she would walk home in from after this whole corn grinding process was done. Then when she returned home, she would wear that. Okay, so that's it for that. And pictures. Been through worse, right? So they do get buried in their wedding outfit so that they are dressed appropriately when they're buried, so and they enter the spirit world. Now, it's interesting because burial practices, now, unlike Christians, there's not much interest in the afterlife for them. They assume the soul just goes to another part of the universe to continue and carry out a new existence and performing normal daily tasks and activities as if they were still alive. So it's not seen as when you die, you're going to a very special certain place like Christianity shows, like with the idea of heaven. They don't have that. It's just that you are going to another part of the universe and you're continuing the same type of existence you had when alive, doing the same activities and such. So then you are, you're a revered ancestor, of course. You are respected for that, but there's not like a big deal isn't made of it, if you will. Now the Hopis place grave goods like food, etc., and prayers are offered up at a burial. When one dies, the Hopi woman of the family washes the hair of the dead with the yucca root suds, which again, the yucca plant, it suds up. So it doesn't require much water to do it, but it can be almost like a soap, if you will. So they wash the hair of the dead person. They put on a cotton mask, is then tied over the face, and a prayer paho stick is bound to a lock of hair and then covers the face, and then the body's buried, and that's it. Spirit world. What about the spirit world, Renee? Now they also have some interesting, like I didn't find this when doing the initial research on how they handle the birth of a child. Unfortunately, I didn't find this till I was almost done with the research last night. And to squeeze it in where I wrote that down would have been a big mess in the notes. So to say that I just wrote it separately. So yes, it jumps back a little bit, but I thought it was important to include this. So as far as birth rituals go for the mother has the baby traditionally alone, like she goes into the room or wherever she's having the child by herself and doesn't have any help doing so. She carries the ear of corn that was selected when it was learned that she was first pregnant. So first get pregnant, they give you a special ear of corn. I think that is meant for the child. And it's like that perfect ear of corn I mentioned before. So she takes that with her in to have the baby. After the first cries of the baby is first heard, The grandmother then enters the room, offering to help care for the baby after that. Now, after delivery, the mother must stay in the darkened room for 9 days and must not wear her moccasins during that time. Now, I didn't find any reasoning given for why she wasn't supposed to leave the darkened room or couldn't wear her moccasins, but it's all it said in the research. The newborn is bathed in items including the yucca suds and corn pollen. And again, the yucca root is a natural saponin, meaning it suds up. So the baby is washed in that, along with, I'm sure, sacred herbs that they're not going to let outsiders know about, and corn pollen as well, because again, corn's a sacred thing. So the Hopi culture, as seen, is the ancient cultures in the Americas of indigenous people, is very rich in beliefs and practices, and I'm sure they're going to continue holding on tight to their indigenous traditions that so many other tribes have lost for, the next eon at least. Like, they've already been there. They're one of the most longest running tribes in the United States that have, especially, that still are in their original location and hung on to all their original traditions. And again, they date back to, the year 1100, give or take. So it's not, they're going to be around for the next 1,000 years at least too, short of some natural, disaster calamity. So that's pretty much it on the Hopis. I didn't want to get too redundant in the information. So that is, again, what is shared with the outside world that we know of, their practices, their location, and family structures and so forth. So you can go to their website for the cultural center. Again, if you're interested in having a trip out there or visiting the reservation, one can, or just learning more about them as a culture. Again, I took the highlights off of that in the research, but yeah, I probably did take 9 days. Most people don't have 9 days to recover from giving birth alone, but you weren't allowed to leave during that time. So the next Willows Bend is on July 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern, as always, for episode number 139. And the topics to vote on are as follows. There was one. Oh, Lord, I was thinking about it, and I write down just a big slide because I don't remember. Sure. There was one I was going to add to the list for tonight. Give me a second. I might just remember it. Let me see. It was some obscuro idea that I came up with as it was I know it was a compare and contrast thing, like comparing this against this, and I'll think of it. I'll put it on the list for next week. Thank you, Sandy. So what we do have on the table for next week, and again, if anybody viewing this show anywhere or listening in is interested in, has an idea for a show topic, by all means, feel free to hit me up in Messenger or in my group on Facebook, the Willows Bend. On Messenger, I'm simply under Donna Gorton, and I will get the message. That's probably actually the fastest way to reach me. And I'll tell you if we've already covered it before or not, but we're always open to suggestions, and anything goes of interest. It gets voted on. Majority votes wins the vote for the following week. I go research it and present it, much like this one, the next time. Very well. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I know it's a shorter one, but again, I didn't want to get redundant and bring the material there. Megan's buzzing, no mind. So, top vote on for next week, we have the ship, the Mary Celeste, where the entire crew went missing. And they just got up from their supper and disappeared, leaving all their dishes and food and everything in place. And it's unknown where they went. The unknown discs of Volgograd, Russia. The Tunguska event, which was also in Russia, which looked like, a big celestial missile had fallen from the ground or from the sky, and a big meteorite took out half of this area, but no impact crater was ever found. So it's really unknown what happened, but you can still see the results of it today. It's interesting. And evidence for advanced civilizations. So with that, I was more thinking in terms of, what things do we have that around the world, not just, another unexplained archaeology show, however, more comparing like specific things that science kind of overlooks as being evidence for proof of ancient civilizations that they kind of won't own up to, admit or otherwise, and just kind of stand their ground to it or leave it as unknown rather than, hey, admitting that yes, an ancient advanced civilization must have created this. More and more of these sites come up all the time, and there's tons we have never covered, but I just thought it would be an interesting thing just to present it as that of what is the evidence out there in support of ancient civilizations. So the Mary Celeste, the unknown discs of Voldegard, the Tunguska event, the Babushka lady, and evidence for advanced civilizations. Again, I'll probably think of that other topic I came up with. It sounded really interesting, but it's escaping me now that I'm going to talk about it, of course, because it's going to make me look like I'm an idiot and wait, what? So forgive me on that one. I'll think of it, or I won't. One of the two. So it's not frozen. Nobody's seeing me. Sandy. So the Mary Celeste, the discs of Voldegard, the Tunguska event, the Babushka lady, or evidence for advanced civilization, or if anyone else has any other suggestions they want to throw out there, Sandy Griffin, who is my memory for me for topics, will be able to tell you for sure whether I've covered it in the past before. I've been doing my show for 3 years now. So I don't always remember all of them without referencing them and looking up the notes on them, but Sandy, bless her heart, has never missed a show, and she can always tell me whether I've done something before or not. So what would you guys like for the coming week? No one's throwing anything out there. That's weird. Oh, okay. Yeah, I froze. All right. I was going to say, it's really, nobody's responding. That's weird. All right. So we got Lori for the Mary Celeste. If I say your name, I saw your vote. Okay. So Lori for the Mary Celeste, Sandy M for the Mary Celeste. Gotcha. Renee is the Babushka lady. Hey, you guys got top fan badges. That's kind of cool. It says Babushka. It just says you got share. That's cool, Stacia. So again, we got the Mary Celeste, the unknown discs of Voldegard, which is all these stone discs that are found all over this area of Russia. Nobody knows where they came from. Some of them are sitting in creek beds in the middle of the woods, like wherever, all over the place. And it's unknown where they came from, what exactly they are or whatever. You are special, Renee. You said the Babushka lady. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, it didn't show up in my feed. I don't know why. So Babushka lady. Which is where I always tell people, like, if you don't hear me say your name, then that means I didn't see your vote. So, got you now, Brenda. Is that it? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Ted, if you're still here, what would you like to see for next week? I just know Stacy's not here too. If I didn't say your name, Sandy, I did not get yours. So what was your vote, darling? Yeah, I don't show any votes shown until Lori is the first one for Mary Celeste up above. Ronnie said the Babushka lady. Gotcha. I did not see yours, Nancy. It's not showing up in my chat. That's odd. Babushka lady looks like she's going to take it this week. Sandy says the unknown discs. Gotcha, Sandy. Marianne says the Babushka lady. What was yours, Nancy? That's odd that not everyone's comments are showing up for me. I don't know why. The Babushka lady too. Yeah, she was like a blind psychic medium from Russia, and I want to say I saw something quick about someone suggested the topic ages ago, and I didn't know who she was, and it never got voted on, so it got off from the list. Somebody resuggested again, and I saw some clip of it to where it was like she was seen in some location that she physically wasn't, so she like sent part of her consciousness there, I'm assuming, and she got seen doing it, like her, whether it was her astral body got seen or what it was, I'm not sure. Don't know the details. I haven't researched her yet. I just saw like a quick mini clip of part of a show on her once that was like a few minutes long. So I just know the bare bones basics of her, and that's it. Okay, well, it looks like, unless there's a gaggle of people coming up that I haven't gotten down yet, but Babushka Lady wins it for this coming week. So let me circle that. That's kind of by a landslide. Now, do you guys want the other topics left on? Because nobody's voted for the Tunguska event for a couple of weeks now. Nobody's voted for the evidence of advanced civilizations yet either a bit. So do we want them left there, or do you want me just up with a handful and then yes, what, Renee? Whatever she said. Leaving them there, or Katie, are you voting for Babushka? Babushka. Please leave them. Gotcha. Leave for now. Okay. I mean, that's usually what you guys end up saying is keep them, and but I check in periodically if something hasn't gotten said. The bag lady, you're funny, Katie. Keep them running. Okay. All right, well, I'll leave them on there if I should happen to think of whatever one I thought of briefly. It was literally seconds before I came on with Katie, because we always chat for a couple seconds before we get on the air, and I had it in my head, and I didn't write it down foolishly because I didn't have my notebook out yet, and whoosh, gone. So it'll come back to me if it was important. I'll see something that reminds me of it at any rate. And also for those, this is of interest. I mean, I think I mentioned it in passing last week. I posted it in the group. I can reshare the link if it got buried to them, but there was a video I posted was of an alleged interview. We did the show on the reptilians, aliens last week, I think it was. That was last week, yeah, pretty sure. It's the Hopis. Yes. Okay, so we covered the reptilian civilization last week, and I'd come across a video of this interview that was supposed to have been with a reptilian female. And I mean, it's a little long, but I think it's worthy of watching. And I also had found the written transcript of the interview as well. I haven't read through it yet, but what was shown in the video apparently was some of it was the interview was left out. I don't know if it's in the written transcript or not, but it's supposed to, it wasn't in the video of it, in the verbal interview. But they claim with 100% that it was accurate interview, that it actually did take place, and it was that the guy ended up having all kinds of kind of being followed and so forth on, after the fact, and that he knew it sounded paranoid, but he couldn't dismiss away what he was experiencing after publishing and putting this information out there. This interview, he only shared it with a select few people, but apparently it ran from there, and he started getting, he thought his phone might be getting tapped, and his hard drive information disappeared on him, and all kinds of weird stuff. About alien, you go over the options. I was being filled. You couldn't see me. I could see a few people, Stacy. It was odd. We got the Mary Celeste, the Unknown Discs of Boldegard, the Tunguska event, the Babushka Lady, or evidence for advanced civilizations. So Marianne said that she watched it. I know last week Sandy said she'd started watching the one I posted. Very interesting. And she wouldn't allow photographs to be taken of herself during it because that was like a part of their religious beliefs, I guess, of their culture, of the reptilian race. But she wanted to dispel a lot of the rumors where it puts all reptilians in a bad light, because that's not the case. And that, she would allow sketches from this guy to draw her, but not to photograph her. and said even if he did photograph her, that most people wouldn't believe it anyway, which is correct, you know. The evidence for advanced civilization. Okay, well, you're the only one who wanted that for this week, Stace. So unfortunately, the babushka lady is the one that had like 7 votes. So I mean, I made a notation of it for you. Yeah, I thought about that one, not of just doing like one singular ancient civilization site like we have covered in the past, but going through kind of all of the evidence out there suggesting ancient civilizations. And in this interview, this alleged alien being did talk about how we are the 6th or 7th incarnation, or like we are basically one big lab experiment being conducted by another alien race who just keeps kind of periodically coming back and tinkering with our DNA. And that explains the jump we've had, which I've always mentioned in the development and evolutionary path that humans have taken, that there's like 50,000 years kind of unaccounted for compared to how slow evolution usually is in nature. You know, that we just took this giant leap forward from Neanderthals all the way up to suddenly being hominids like us. Are the beliefs what, Renee? The Matrix? Yeah, and so like we are one big lab experiment, but that there have been 6. She said in the interview, the female alien did, that she thought that she hasn't specifically kept count of it. She thinks that we were the 6th or 7th advanced civilization that have lived on Earth, and they are the race of humans. And when they have one, that they would wipe them out and kind of start over, that the race who created us left and hasn't been back in several thousands of years, hence why we haven't advanced any, but that we're only what we find in evidence for ancient sites that are unexplained are really only from like the last generation of us, so to speak, or 2 maybe at best, but the rest have been kind of, you know, lost to time. But what the ancient unexplained sites are, the evidence for those other forms of humans that were created by them, and they didn't, for whatever reason, weren't thrilled with them and wiped them out. Yeah, very interesting. Well, this interview I put into YouTube Stace, that was a specific interview done with a female reptilian race that lives in one of those underground cities that we've talked about before, and that it was like a one-on-one interview. It took place like in Sweden, I think it was, and that she had first appeared to one gentleman who contacted this friend of his, who then conducted these 2 interviews. Some of the information was left out that she didn't want published yet, but she showed him and demonstrated different things to prove she was valid. And she sat in front of him apparently for it, but no, they wouldn't allow photography. She wouldn't say why she didn't want her photo taken, just that it was part of their religious beliefs, leave it at that. But did allow like any sketches he wanted to make. So I posted the YouTube link in the Willows Bend group, and it's maybe buried now. I can ship the user interested in it, but as soon as I said your name, it took you off. That's very odd, Marianne. So I just said it again. Sorry. Sorry. I'm just trying to acknowledge you. Yeah, apparently people are getting filtered tonight, which never has happened in here before. So I can repost that if you guys would like, because it probably has gotten kind of buried in the feed by now, because this was last week I posted it, but very interesting. And there is a written transcript too that I found online that I can also put in there with it if you guys are interested in seeing it again or whatever. Long, so you may have to break it down in pieces and watching it, but yeah, it was very, very interesting. Have I heard of Elizabeth Eel? I have not. Who is she? Yeah, I can repost it, Nancy, definitely, and put the written transcript link, which I hadn't found until maybe a couple of days ago, so that wasn't part of the original post I made, but I just had shared the interview in. It's still there, not too far down. Okay. So then from what Sandy says, just scroll down in the feed a little bit and it's in there. and it has a picture, like a drawing illustration of her, what she looked like to the artist and the guy who did the interview. Who is Elizabeth April? This weird, interesting video. She made sense. That's why I'm mentioning it, is that it did make sense. She's a YouTube broadcaster and talks a lot about what you're talking about. Oh, okay. I have not heard of her. No. And I don't know, like the guy who did the interview, he has maintained anonymity because of what the things he had happen after putting out the transcript. Like I said, he said that he only emailed a few copies of it out to his select few of his friends, but it seems like it kind of got into the wrong hands somewhere along the way, and he had been being followed in a truck that was marked as some European bakery company or something, but nobody ever, he always would see them parked outside his house, never saw anybody sitting there, and he even went at one point knocking on the windows, which were tinted. Who tints a bakery truck window? That his phone went out of service for a couple hours, and when it came back on, every time he'd go to use it to dial out, he would hear a series of like clicks and weird background noises, that he had looked like someone had broken into his apartment at one point, that he came home and his door was open, the TV was on, which he knows for a fact he shut it off before leaving. His hard drive of his computer, there was some, like the main file that I guess the transcript was kept in, was moved and renamed as something else. And the next time he went to access it, it was gone from his hard drive. So somebody had taken off with it. So it's narrated in like a computerized voice for male and female, but I mean, it's doable. It's not terrible to listen to, but yeah, it is long, but it's really interesting. And again, it does make sense. I think a lot of what is on there makes sense. And with any of that stuff, I always balance out for myself of, does this resonate at all as true? Does it, at my core, does this make sense as possibly valid information? Excuse me. I don't ever, just take everything I hear and run. Of course not. But it is like, does this make sense? Well, yeah, kind of. It actually kind of does. And in keeping with like the ancient civilization stuff, and how that the things that are, quote, unexplained archaeology that we've done many shows on before, that only the last one or two generations of us that have been found, that the rest were wiped out. And, I will say across many ancient texts, all in there, like the Bible has Genesis, and there's ancient texts for each main religious belief system in the world, and creation stories. And in all of them, they all list a huge worldwide flood. No matter where they're from in the world, they all show a flood having happened or talk about it in their ancient texts. So, that she talks about that they use something like that each time to eradicate the existing lab rats, basically, for what we are to them, and that we're a big lab experiment, that there are negative reptilian aliens that work with the government. She validated that, but that her specific faction of it. So it's kind of like how with humans, you may have different races of us, where indigenous people, you may have Hispanics, you may have African Americans, but they're all still humans. So I think the reptilians are probably set up the same way, where there are groups that are still technically reptilians, but it's a different faction of them. The giants and all, she said, dinosaurs war. Yep. She did talk about the race of giants that existed, that was the aliens race doing of creating them. The dinosaurs were like lab animals that they were experimenting with, and a big war happened and stuff. And even in like the governments taking the technology from crashed aircraft, that UFO aircraft that's been found, that the remnants of that the negative, not so nice race of reptilians working with the governments and stuff, that they're after at its core, like copper and different elements of our air, like the hydrogen and stuff like that, the elements the earth offers them. That's what they're after. She validated there was a meeting that took place that's been speculated back in the 50s, and that the crafts that were found that we've kind of reverse engineered and the military have built upon, but never can get them quite right to be completely the same or have the same capabilities as UFOs are said to have, that they kind of intentionally misinformed them on their practice, and that many people were lost in the experiments of operating them because they gave them the wrong information. Here's the galactic bar from Star Wars. Not sure which galactic bar you mean, Renee. And 14 or more alien species walk amongst us, and they're here. Yeah, she said that there were about 14 alien races that had contact with Earth. Some come and go, but there's ones that are, 3 of them are not friendly towards humans at all and couldn't care less what happens to us. We are nothing more than like a mildly curious lab experiment going on for them, because again, they want the resources that the planet can offer them. So she said, basically, should there come some like intergalactic war of some kind, don't count on any specific race to come to our rescue. And then we have to kind of learn to figure it out ourselves and to not create situations that getting ourselves in over our heads without realizing it, with all the different species of aliens. Oh, I think I know what you mean now. Well, yeah, that's what she talked about, that there are these different races out there that are kind of steadfast presence on Earth. She did talk about some other elements, like physics wise, that I'm not great at that stuff, so I don't fully understand it, but it was talking about how, I know she talked about bubbles, that we have the idea of dimensions wrong, and our bubbles, they can traverse those between places. I don't know. I didn't fully understand all of that from the video, but in her explanation of it, not my forte. Physics and science, higher science stuff, not good at that stuff. So, I mean, heck, I can't remember what I had for supper last night most nights. So remembering higher science material, yeah, not my thing. It doesn't make sense to me with quantum physics stuff, but a lot of what she said resonated as possible truth anyway. It was very interesting, worthy of a watch. But it isn't, according to Sandy, not too far down on the feed in a group in Willows Bend. So just scroll down a little bit and it's there. And I will subsequently later tonight, after I'm off the air, post the written transcript of the interviews. There might be something different in there. I don't know. Yes, they are a threat, and us humans are like made fun of. They send people here to watch us. Yeah, they're like an idle curiosity, like, look at these schmucks over there. And, that we're totally made fun of by other races because we remain so ignorant on so many things and refuse to see stuff that's right in front of us, which I agree. And, he was having her kind of look at images of like photographs of different alleged UFOs, and like, is this real? Is this real? And who does this belong to? She said if they're getting seen and they're being slopped, and or there's an equipment malfunction because they have the equipment to not get seen. So if they are, they're being run by immature people messing around, or they have, their equipment's defective. And that half of us don't use common sense to discern when you're looking at a photograph of, okay, you have something photographed in the sky, but there's no displacement of anything around it in the air, or, if it's over water, showing the water movement of any propulsion system, etc. So yeah, that made sense. Yeah, a lot of people don't do that. Yep. And some are UFOs, which I do believe. And I obviously, again, the reverse engineering of those crafts attempted by our military forces globally, we're not getting it quite right because they're giving us wrong information in exchange for people to experiment on, genetic access to DNA stuff, access to some of those resources they're interested in. And, because we're kind of too dumb to notice the difference that they didn't give us the right information, then we're building this stuff that has this disastrous results in the lab setting of, trying to let off a light, and it's like incinerating the people involved in science. All that in it. Which I think food for thought anyhow. So anyway, that's in the group. I will post the written transcript as well, so you have both to look at. Book group is on the 7th this week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time here in the group. Just if you look at, had to go from and back. Yeah, we're just summarizing up and getting ready to get off for to know. The hi there's along with lights on, and yeah. Yep. And so like if you're looking at the group photo in Willows Bend, underneath our row of tabs, on the left side, there's one labeled as rooms. And if you're interested in coming to the book group, just go in there and click on the join button. You'll be in there. It's not a big difficult process. And that'll be 8 p.m. Wednesday. And then Monday we'll be back in here again for Willows Bend for Babushka Lady as the topic. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do a Friday show on readings or not yet. Things have gotten pretty slow in there lately. And, you know, it takes, you know, it's not a quick thing to get all set up with the lights and get me presentable and then have it be more of a hangout session. So I haven't decided yet. I might just take a couple weeks off and then resume, gauge interest in. So I'll let everybody know, of course, if I do decide to go forward on Friday night. But other than that, that would be it, guys. So thank you for coming this week. As always, I turned notifications off, so I don't know why I'm still dinging on here on my phone. Thank you for coming, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm glad everybody eventually found their way to the right chat place. I don't know where there was so much confusion this time, but anyway. So lots of love to everyone. Thank you guys for coming. Much love to everyone. Stay clear where you are. Stay safe as storm. You know the gist. You guys are very, very welcome. And I love you all. And I will see you guys Wednesday for book group and around Facebook land. Good night, everyone. Sure we'll all need you by then. Well, that's why I figured I'll take a couple weeks off, Laurie, and see if there's more interest then or not. Good night, Tanya. Love you too. Good night, everybody. Love